Is there a specific ICU experience that will help you get into anesthesia school? Well, keep watching. My name is Christine. Welcome to a new video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a CRNA or grow your CRNA career, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss a thing. In this video, I'm going to discuss what type of ICU experience that I did as an experienced CRNA that helped me get into anesthesia school. And these tips that I'll discuss in this video will also help you and guide you. So when you are thinking about CRNA school, what type of ICU experience that will help you in the long run get accepted. So let's get into it. So I am an experienced CRNA. I've been working for a few years in practicing. And some tips, when I think back to when I was thinking about going into CRNA school, what advice I received was that it is important to have an ICU experience that is broad and in a teaching hospital. Yes, you might work in a small community hospital and that might be the only options you may have, but if you can, it is preferred to be in a busy ICU where you get really sick patients in an acute care setting. When I was an ICU nurse, I worked at NYU Medical Center in New York, and it was a great hospital to work at. It was a teaching institution. We got most of the sickest patients in the city, and I felt my ICU experience definitely guided me and allowed me to learn a lot about critical care and critical care thinking, which is important because when you are going into CRNA school, it is a totally different ball game. It is a totally different ball game going into CRNA school. It's totally different. It's something you've never learned before in the ICU. However, being an ICU nurse allows you to have that critical care thinking, also learning how to titrate drips, learn your pathophysiology, definitely having experience with a big variety of medical conditions. So it's definitely important to be a part of a hospital that has a really wide range of ICU experience. Tip one, I would say, is that when you think about going into the ICU, it's really good to either be in the medical ICU, the surgical ICU, even the cardiovascular ICU, the critical care ICU, even trauma ICU. I would say those are great options to think about. A lot of people will say the CVICU is the best one, or no, the medical ICU is the best one, or the surgical ICU is the best one. I think the best ICU experience is how you make that ICU experience for you. Now, you can go into the medical ICU or the surgical ICU or the CVICU and not put yourself out there to get the sickest patients and learn a lot. So it all depends on you, how you interpret your ICU experience. But I do recommend wherever area you think of going into, what you're interested in, just make sure it's a very busy hospital that you'll get a wide range of experience. Teaching hospitals are great. Level 1, level 2 trauma centers are great. That is a great option for you when you're thinking about going into CRNA school. The great thing about NYU Medical Center, the hospital I worked at, so right when I graduated nursing, I went into the ICU directly. I did not go into the medical surgical ICU. I didn't go into any other area. I went straight into the ICU, which was great. Not a lot of hospitals nowadays are allowing new grads to go straight into the ICU because it's a lot. It's a very rigorous program when you transition from being a nurse, graduating, into going into the ICU. So I would say if there's an opportunity, right when you graduate nursing school, go right into the ICU. If there are certain hospitals that you're looking at, try to look at hospitals that will give you the opportunity to go right into the ICU. I know they say that it's nice to have some medical surgical floor experience, but in my opinion, if you really want to become a CRNA quickly, I would say honestly don't go into the medical surgical unit. Just try to get right into the ICU and get your 1 to 2 years of experience or more if you desire. Another tip I would say is you don't need a lot of years of experience to go into CRNA school. I actually had a classmate that only went into the ICU for 1 year, applied to CRNA school, and got accepted. So it's definitely an opportunity that can happen for you as long as your training is on point, as well as getting your CCRN. Well, what is your CCRN? Is your critical care certification. So, which is very good to get as soon as you get into the ICU. Within the first 3 to 6 months, you should start studying for it and taking that. So when you think about going into the ICU, try to go into the ICU as soon as possible and get your minimum years of experience. Now, you may say, all right, I'm going to do at least 2 years. That's fine. But the more years of experience you do have in the ICU, studies have shown that you have a higher probability of getting into CRNA school. So that's another thing you got to look at, because just because you did 1 year, it doesn't guarantee that you're comparing yourself to a person that's 5 years of experience in the same application pool. It depends on many factors, but more than likely, if you both have strong resumes and strong skill sets, they're going to take the person with the higher years of experience naturally. Now, when you are an ICU nurse in the ICU, yes, it's important to get your patient care, be involved with your patients, and definitely be a wide ICU nurse. However, you need to think about being active in the hospital. Try to be a part of a committee. Try to be a part of writing protocols or research or quality improvement measures. It's also great to be involved with being a charge nurse or being part of the code team, just volunteering yourself to be a part of multiple aspects of being in the ICU. That's very important, because when you do have your application, it looks great that you aren't just an ICU nurse, but you're also a nurse that got a wide range of experience and have been involved, because extracurricular activities are important in any type of facet when you're thinking about going into school. So you definitely want to not just be an ICU nurse, but you want to be involved in multiple factors that can help you. You know, when I was an ICU nurse, I was a part of the nurse resuscitation committee, as well as I was charge ICU nurse, as well as I was part of making protocols, especially a sepsis champion. That was a while back when sepsis protocol just came into place. That was years ago. And I also was a part of research committees. I also volunteered to do something called, during my summer, I did a substance abuse research program on substance abuse, which is great when you think about anesthesia. But just think about it too, just to let you know that in anesthesia, we do a lot of different wide variety of medications, narcotics, and things that are, you know, you can't really get in the drugstore per se. So it's definitely good to do research project, because nowadays there's an opioid epidemic and a lot of people are addicted to these drugs. And not that when you're having surgery, people are going to need narcotics. They're going to need medicine to make sure they're not in pain. But it looks good that you're kind of aware of substance abuse research. For me, I thought it was great for my research project. But you could do anything. It could be anything related to research, which is great. CRNA school nowadays is not, I'm a master's prepared CRNA. However, now it's DMP, and it's very research focused, which is amazing. And so if you do apply to a program, they're going to have an expectation that you're going to be doing research. And that's important nowadays in critical care medicine. So, as well as CRNA practice. So definitely start yourself gearing into getting involved in research and extracurricular activities. Another tip I would say is to, as an ICU nurse, is as soon as you get into the ICU, transition into being in the ICU and getting comfortable and getting all transition in, it's very important that you try to seek out to shadow a CRNA. Why? I think it's important to see what a CRNA does. You may have heard of it, you may have read about it, you may have heard, oh my God, CRNAs make so much money. Yes, that is true. However, you want to go into a practice that you like. It's not about the money, because at the end of the day, when you are a CRNA, or whatever area you decide to be in, you want to be happy. You want to be happy and feel good about what you do. And you don't want to spend time and money going into a profession that you're not 100% into. So you need to shadow a CRNA, maybe not once, maybe not twice, maybe multiple times, to make sure that this is a right fit. Because anesthesia is beautiful for me, and an anesthesia is an art, and so it's definitely important to shadow. And if your first experience wasn't the best, maybe it wasn't that experience alone, maybe it's not being a CRNA that maybe being in CRNA, maybe that's not it. It goes shadow another person, maybe go to a different type of setting to see the variety of what anesthesia CRNAs do is important. Now, when you're an ICU nurse, Another thing I said, you should definitely take your CCRI, which is your critical care certification, as soon as possible. I mean, I think it's very important for you to transition to be an ICU nurse, because it is going to be a rigorous transition. However, get into the mindset of taking examinations, getting the mindset of getting yourself well established, so you can progress into the right direction into becoming a CRNA student. So take your CCRN. What I recommend, what I used is Laura Desgasparis. I don't know if I pronounced her name right, but she's amazing. I bought her whole system, and yes, I watched all of her. She has a video. She's makes it so fun, so loving, so good. But the most important thing about that is that her book with the questions. I did a ton of questions, and that's what I mainly did. I didn't read the book per se, but I did a ton of questions and the rationales, and a lot of questions were harder than the actual exam itself. So if you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to start getting into the mindset, I'm going to get my CCRN, give yourself a couple months, maybe a month or two, just to kind of get yourself acclimated to going over the information. But take the CCRN as soon as possible. And if you don't pass it the first time, well, try again. Do not give up, because you can do it. I did it the first time, but not everyone's the same, and that's okay. But don't get discouraged, because having that certification is important in a sense, even if the school isn't requiring it, because it shows that you're at the standard of all ICU nurses. We're all at the same level. We all have a certification that's equal throughout the country. So it's very important for you to get that. When you're in ICU, even though you might be so overwhelmed by practicing and being an ICU nurse, when you are working in the ICU, try to make sure you're reviewing your pathophysiology. Make sure that you have a patient, they have heart disease, kind of going over the pathophysiology in regards to that, as well as the normal heart versus the sick heart. Also, think about your drips. Look over your levofed, look over all your drips, ABGs, your normals, your abnormals. Try to be involved with trying to keeping yourself up to date on all the information. So make sure when you're doing your ICU training that you are making sure that your ICU training complements you studying in the book. So just try to have maybe a review book with you and looking over those type of information. Maybe after your day at work, you can write some notes down of stuff you're going to go review at home. So it kind of keeps your mind thinking about critical care medicine. Because yes, being a CRNA is a totally different field, but knowing the foundation that you are laying for yourself will help you in your future. Because when you do try to get accepted into a CRNA program, when you have your interview, they're going to be testing you. They're going to be questioning you with a ton of information. And if you're not on point with the questions they're asking you, you're not going to get accepted. So you have to try to start preparing yourself as an ICU nurse, because anyone can do it. You just got to work hard and you got to be diligent. So definitely think about those tips, okay? So I hope that this helped you, and thank you so much for watching. And if you want to learn more about CRNAs, definitely click one of these videos over here, and I'll see you in the next video.